am using, I'm still kind of learning this new software that I use for streaming right now. So it might be a little bit of a time lag, but I figured tonight would be a great night to try it out and just to try all the different bells and whistles for it. So guys, as you are jumping on board, hang on, let me make sure my microphone is actually turned on. Yes, everything seems to be turned on and working. Okay, guys. Oh, good. Susan, thank you so much for giving me a shout out, guys. As you come on board tonight, you know, I always love hearing from you, but tonight I especially want to hear from you. Hey, Stephen, I have your email here, and I can't wait to talk about some of the things that you mentioned in your email tonight. Olga, hey, thank you. I am having a very Merry Christmas. I froze. So guys, I am using some new software tonight, and I'm kind of playing around with it. I'm also streaming from YouTube, my YouTube channel. So hopefully you'll be able to see if you prefer watching me from YouTube, or more importantly, if you know people that want to watch the show, but they're not really great on Facebook or social media and they have a little trouble kind of maneuvering it, they can go to my YouTube channel. It's under Cozy Talks, same thing, and they can watch me from there. So if there's any of you out there watching me from YouTube, give me a shout out. I'd love to know if it's working from there as well. Johnny V, what's up? Happy New Year, Johnny. Oh, nice. Okay, awesome, Mark. Hey, Mark. Not too bad for somebody who doesn't do a lot of tech work, huh? I got my pretty little frame on here and everything. I'm getting fancy tonight. Glenda was our big winner from last week's show. I'm so glad you could join in, Glenda. We've got Roll Tide, Stephen. Roll Tide. All right. My dad would be very proud. Thank you, Stephen. All right, guys, who else we got on board this evening? I'm having a, hey, Benny. Oh, Benny's watching me from YouTube. Awesome. Let me know if you can hear me okay, Benny. We got Damon. What's going on, Damon? Of course, Stephen. Stephen, you asked some really great questions, and I really appreciate you being okay with my sharing with folks about part of your email that you wrote to me. Let's see. You know, Mark, you know I like to have fun. Hey, Daniel. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Well, I appreciate you stopping in to say hello. We got William Mays from Richmond, Virginia. PT is the head of my team. The prosthetist is the next. I like that. I like that. Prosthetist, take note. Just kidding. Just kidding. See, Kristen? See, I can make it look good every once in a while. I can kind of, you know, put on the polish just a little bit. Hey, Rhonda. What's going on? Hey, we've got it's a couple people from YouTube. So guys, I am trying out some new software. I'm trying to get it to work a little bit better, because this way my big goal in 2021 with the show is to be able to reach more people outside of Facebook, because I do know there's several of you who have mentioned to me that you have fellow amputees who would like to watch the show, but they don't necessarily have a Facebook account, or they're not very good at maneuvering on Facebook, which I totally understand. So hopefully with this software, I can give them the option of watching from my YouTube channel, which is a little bit easier sometimes. And hopefully if I play my cards right, I can get this to stream directly from my website, which would be wonderful. Hey, Patrick from the wine. Good evening from the wine capital of Texas. Awesome. Hey, Barbara. Oh, Happy New Year to you as well, Marge. Thank you. We've got Royce. Oh, there's my Irish lass. Thank you for staying up, Royce. You must be pretty wiped out right now. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and you'll have to forgive me this evening. I've got a bit of a head cold, so if I sound like a sexy frog, oh yeah, loving the head cold. For those of you joining me for the first time this evening, welcome. My name is Cozy Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm an amputee specialist. I've been a PT now for 18 years. 18 years, y'all. This December, I celebrated being licensed to kill for 18 years, and working with the limb loss is my passion. I have a clinic here in Tampa, Florida, that is exclusively for working with amputees and teaching them how to get ready for their prosthetic devices, how to walk, and sometimes how to run with their prosthesis. And I love what I do. It's been a wonderful Christmas. Oh, you are so sweet. Hey, Susie, Happy New Year. Guys, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, I love to hear from my audience. This is meant to be an interactive show, so please put all these comments in the section. Let's start off, it's kind of like the new year. It's kind of sexy frog and oxymoron. Yes, it is an oxymoron, Patrick. So is this voice right now. So guys, it's the new year. Let's talk resolutions. I know my resolutions are basically for the show. Okay. Is to grow and expand the reach of the show and to reach more folks who are going and recovering from limb loss and try to help them achieve more information and education and empowerment through the show. So that's kind of my big one there, my big New Year's resolution with that one. Hey, Damon, thanks a lot. Happy New Year, Mariela. Oh, Susan, give me some more details on that, Susan. Let's see if we can't troubleshoot as to why your leg hurts so much. Give me some more details, Susan. All right, so guys, I'm actually going to start tonight with a sound off, and I usually don't sound off very often. It takes a lot to get my buttons rattled, but I got my buttons rattled last week. So, I belong to several of the support groups on Facebook, and I like to scroll and listen in and just see what are the questions that folks are asking about recovery from limb loss, okay? Guys, the number one reason I started this show is because I would see people post questions that quite honestly, they should have been asking their clinicians. And I would see people who obviously had very good hearts and wanted to help giving information in these support groups that was completely incorrect. And not only that, they themselves were not clinicians, and they were giving advice that kind of should be given by clinical professionals. And this could be for many reasons. A lot of people that posted these questions was because they felt like they couldn't find a clinician who would answer their questions. So they were turning to people on social media, and that can be such a dangerous thing. And this is the reason why I started this show. This show actually started in late 2017, actually, guys, like November of 2017. And I got so frustrated at seeing people posting questions that were being answered incorrectly that one night I just said, fine, I'm going to go live and I'm going to answer these two questions that I keep seeing asked over and over again. Okay. So this happened last week, and it was regarding wound care and skin care. And there was a person who said, I'm having trouble with my skin care and rashes and this and that and the other. And the subject of Hibiclens came out. And this is not the first time. So this is kind of why I'm addressing it right now, because this is not the first time I'm hearing people talk about Hibiclens. And it's something that I kind of feel strongly about. I'm really big on skin health. I did a lot of work with wound care in my earlier days as a physical therapist. And there were several people on the support group who, again, not clinicians, and were saying, use Hibiclens. You can use it every day. It's not a problem. I use it all the time. And it just makes me go, okay, because number one solution that works for one person is not necessarily going to work for another person. Okay. Y'all have heard me say that many times on the show. What one foot works for one person will not work for the other person. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Hibiclens. Okay. Hibiclens is the real name for it is chlorhexidine. Okay. The trade name, okay, the name that some of the companies use is Hibiclens. You might also see Hibistat, Betasept, Chlorastat. Okay, this falls under the category of antibacterial and antiseptic washes. Okay, this stuff is strong stuff. Okay, in fact, it is so strong that this is what they use. This is what they give you before you go into surgery, so that you can scrub yourself down with it and basically kill off anything that might be on your skin, right? It's helped to use to sterilize the person before they go into surgery, okay? The only times in my life I have ever used Hibiclens was when I had to go into surgery. That's it. That's it. Now, if you look on some of the websites that sell these products, they'll say it's okay for daily use. But here's something I want you guys to consider. And I actually had a conversation today with one of my physical therapy colleagues that all she does is wound care. And I was having a conversation with her about this because I said, I'm seeing this on the support group pages and I don't agree with this. And then she agreed with me. She said, no, if you have skin and you are constantly putting antibacterial, antiseptic, whether it's in the form of, I call it germy gel in my house, those are the alcohol solutions, or using Hibiclens on your residual limb to clean it and to clean your liner. Not only are you killing the potentially bad stuff, you're also killing the good stuff. And the best analogy I can apply is the use of antibiotics, okay? It's now become very well known that there is an abuse of antibiotics in our culture in general, right? that there are so many people that have been using antibiotics for every single little cough and sniffle that they have, that humanity as a whole has built a resistance to some of these antibiotics, right? And we're starting to see some of the superbugs, the MRSAs, the Versas, okay? Some of these really strong bugs that are coming out because we're using antibiotics too much, okay? And that's why with many doctors, they'll encourage you not to use an antibiotic unless it's a true bacterial infection, right? Don't use an antibiotic if you have a viral infection, right? Okay, so that's kind of also my analogy when it comes to all of these antibacterial washes, okay? So I mentioned earlier in the show, I've been doing this for 18 years, guys, 18 years. And when I started out in the profession, that's when we started seeing some of these germy gels, these hand sanitizers, that they became mainstream and they were put into all the patient rooms in the hospital. Because even as far back as when I was in high school, you didn't have hand sanitizers, you just had soap and water, right, in the patient's rooms. And I remember in my earlier rotations, I was working in the infectious disease units. So these are units that have some really nasty bugs that make COVID look like a sissy, okay? We had some really nasty infections and bugs that our patients were dealing with. So as a young therapist, I wanted to make sure that I didn't transmit these bugs to patient. So I would sit there and I'd wash my hands and scrub my hands, and then I would use the hand sanitizer. And I'll never forget the head of infectious diseases, this grandfatherly old gentleman. He looked at me and he just said, "Why are you doing that?" I go, "Well, I don't want to spread the infection." He goes, "I saw you wash your hands. You sat there and you scrubbed for a good 20 to 30 seconds. He's like, "Darling, trust me, you did just fine there." And he actually, this was, before some of these studies coming out, he said, people are using these hand sanitizers and they're killing off the good flora on their skin. And then it's going to come to the point in time where if they do get an infection, we're not going to be able to fight it. So guys, my really long-winded point, and I apologize for this, but this is something I really feel strongly about because I have seen it a lot on the support groups. HIPAA is a really potent antibacterial, antiseptic solution. And I use the word HIPAA because that's the most common. But again, chlorhexidine, okay, is the chemical that's being used in some of these washes. And the thing is, because these things are over the counter, okay, we get the impression that it's safe to use every single day. Now, guys, there's some people who say, "I've been using HIPAA every single day and it manages the smell in my liner and my skin doesn't get irritated." And to those people, I say, that's up to you, but that's not the majority, folks. Number one, if you ever used HIPAA, that stuff is harsh. Like, you put it on your skin and you wash your skin with it and you feel like your skin is all tight and dry because it's really a tough chemical. So to use that day after day after day, you're gonna run the risk of having skin irritation. That's the least of it. And then the second thing to it is, again, you're killing off all the good stuff on your skin day in, day out, day in, day out. So God forbid you develop a staph infection, they're gonna have a hard time fighting it because you've already kind of built some resistance there. So again, as with everything else in your recovery from limb loss, you need to take these things seriously and consult with a clinician about it. If you are having problems with rashes, with blistering, with yeast and fungal infections, okay, your doctor might prescribe the HIPAA as a short-term use. Yeah. But that's exactly what it's meant to do, is short-term use. Okay? And for me, guys, it's not just my, 18 years of experience of doing this in the field. I do have my resources. One of my favorite resources is Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic has it right there, that it's not meant to be used on a long-term basis, right? There's a saying, and I don't remember who said this saying, but it says, "Don't use a cannon to kill a mosquito." Okay, if you're having problems with odor and sweat and things like that in your liner and in your skincare, there are so many other options that you have to combat these things before resorting to the big gun cannon HIPAA. Okay, And those of you who've been with me on the show, you know I have like at least once a month, there's a show that I do dedicated to skin health, skin care, skin hygiene. And we'll talk a little bit about it now, just in case I have some newcomers on the show tonight. Okay. So again, it's one of those things where it's not meant for everybody. And you need to treat it as a prescription medication, meaning use it only if your doctor or if your wound care specialist asks you to use it. Guys, I've worked with, like I said, 18 years. I did wound care. I worked in the burn trauma unit. I've dealt with post-op wounds. I've never told any of my patients to use HIPAA. I don't. Unless the doctor has told them to use it, I have a whole other list of recommendations in terms of how to keep their wounds clean, how to sanitize things. HIPAA has never been in my personal arsenal to recommend to my patients. Okay, that's it. That's kind of my soapbox, and I pun intended soapbox. But anyways, all right. So let me just scroll through some of these comments. I've been kind of hyping about this a bit. Let me just see what y'all are saying here. We got Stephen McCarthy, Irish #2 in the house. Happy New Year, Stephen. Hey, Jonathan. Oh man, I'm so glad you could join me here, Jonathan. We got Daryl Beard on, and Jennifer from Southern Illinois. Thank you for joining in. Susan, I'm going to get to you in just a moment, darling. Stephen says it's used pre-surgery. That's it. Stephen says, I'm not a scientist, but I believe becoming resistant to bugs is a good thing. I avoid antibacterial products. You know, and guys, even with all with COVID, right, we're really getting our education now when it comes to hand washing. And what do all the recommendations tell you? Wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds. It's the actual act and the friction of washing between fingers, wrists, get the rings off. It's the mechanical friction that gets rid of what you need to get rid of on your hands. I have like a hand sanitizer a bottle sitting in my purse, and I got 4 kids, y'all. I got 4 kids. There's bugs all over the place in my house when I got 4 kids, right? I have a bottle of hand sanitizer that I've had for over a year, and I maybe only have used this much of it. Why? Because I use soap and water. That's what's going to get rid of it as much as possible, okay? Moving on. Let me just see here. Hey, Harsh. Hey, man. How's it doing? How you doing? Yeah, Susan, honestly, when it comes to COVID and bugs, now, do I have hand sanitizer in my clinic? Yes, because sometimes there is a rush, right? And I have to get my hands clean, and I will use a little bit of hand sanitizer. But honestly, whenever I can, and this comes from my days of working in the hospital as a volunteer when I was 14 years old, this is just the training. I wash my hands with soap and as hot water as I can tolerate. And then at the end of the day, I make sure I moisturize my hands because they get cracked, right? Because it's happening with clinicians, their hands get cracked and dry because we have to wash our hands in between each patient. So I moisturize, and I use the Vital Fit stuff that y'all hear me talking about to keep my skin healthy and to prevent the cracks from happening where bugs can get into the cracks. Now, is hand sanitizer the devil? No, of course not. Like I said, I have a bottle in my purse for emergency purposes. But that's just kind of how, you know, and if you talk to a lot of healthcare workers, a lot of them will tell you the same thing. A lot of the nurses in ICU that I worked with, soap and water. And again, this is for the general population. Are there cases where you have to use something stronger? Yes, but that is for your doctor to determine this, guys. Okay, not just to kind of grab willy-nilly from the local pharmacy and just start putting stuff on your leg that could potentially cause some serious irritation. Okay. Yes, Harsh, I did catch a cold. Thankfully, it's just a head cold, nothing more serious than that, but has me sounding all nice and wonderful right now. Yeah, Jim, it says makes one wonder about the frequent hand washing and use of sanitizer right now. And yeah, and you know, it's something that with my own kids, because it's so much easier to reach for the hand sanitizer, it's so much more convenient, right? But even with my own kids, I tell them, nope, soap and water. And in my own home, in the bathrooms, and again, this is going back from the advice from the infectious disease doctor from the beginning of my career. You know, all the soap that I have in my home is just regular plain Jane soap, not antibacterial, not, you know. Now when I was on, but here's the catch, guys. When I was going through, some of you may know, I had recently had breast cancer and I had to go through chemotherapy. That's when we use the antibacterial. because I was very severely immunocompromised. So yes, during that time, that short, brief time, from a perspective, long-term perspective, it was a short amount of time, 3 months time that I was under chemo. Yeah, that was the time to use the strong antibacterial hand sanitizers and wash hands plus the hand sanitizer. But that's it. Okay. And I felt okay using it during that time because I knew that we hadn't used it at any other time. So it was going to work and do its job. Shirley's like, I'm surprised Bob is not dressed up as a baby for the new year. Yeah, he wouldn't tolerate wearing the diapers. I tried, Shirley, but he just didn't do it. And Stephen says, I like to garden. I fish, often dirty environments. My best guess is exposure to germs builds resistance. Yeah. And I wish I could pull on some of these studies. My husband, he's also in healthcare. And I remember when our children were small, not only, the benefits of breastfeeding where the child receives all the nice antibodies from mom, during the nursing process, but just the baby, exploring his or her environment and kind of sticking their fingers in their mouth. And, you try to keep things as clean as possible. You don't want them swallowing dirt, but they start to build up that immunity, guys. Okay. So you want a clean environment, you don't want to have a dirty environment, but there's a difference between clean and sterile. And I think, so that's my 4 cents. I gave you guys more than 2 cents on it today. Hey, Linda, Happy New Year. Give Bob a top hat. I like that idea, Mark. All right, I'm trying to catch up on some of these comments. Colloidal silver soap. That's a really great question, Phil. So for me, the silver has a lot of antibacterial, microbial properties. And I would use, for example, some of the dressings that we used in wound care and also in burn trauma. It has silver in it for its antimicrobial properties. But again, Phil, it just makes me go, do we need it for our everyday use and purposes? And I guess my question is, keep it, the KISS rule, keep it simple, silly, okay? If it's not an open wound, if it's not something that you're being actively treated for, and there's no higher risk for immunocompromise, okay, basically, unless your doctor is telling you to take these extreme precautions, then I would say, no, I don't think there would be a need to use some of the fancier soap. I would just say the normal stuff works. And again, it's more the technique of how you wash your hands, okay? All right, we got, let's see. Glenn says we did the same thing during chemo at our house, regular soap the rest of the time. It's guys, you want to save the big guns for when you need the big guns. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right, so we've got, Charles says, I use Nivea shower gel since my skin is sensitive since it was sold over the counter. Is Nivea considered antibacterial level cleanser? Charles, I haven't picked up a bottle of Nivea in a while, but usually on these bottles, it'll tell you if it's considered antibacterial or antimicrobial or whatever, what have you, okay? Hey, Jody, you're a little late to the show. That's all right. We're talking about the beauty of HibaCleanse, and you're definitely going to want to kind of review that one as we finish, Jody. So, hang on, I'm trying to catch up. So Stephen says, study shows that touch screens and door handles in fast food outlets in the UK alone had all sorts of goodies, including human waste, MRSA. And I believe you. I believe you. For me, I'm like the kind of mom that tells my kids, go wash your hands with soap and water and keep your hands away from your face. Like that's where I get the OCD mom thing. Just keep your hands away from your face, away from your mouth, away from your nose, and wash your hands. Oh, wait. Isn't that what they're telling us now to do to protect ourselves from COVID? Okay, sorry. I promise I won't be too sarcastic. All right, so there was another. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of what I do like to use, okay? Now, yes, thank you, Royce, and that was a beautiful segue, Royce. So, is it to say, so HibaCleanse has its moment to be used, guys. But for the everyday prosthetic user, okay, understandably, odor in the liner, sweat, okay? These are all issues that occur. And I live in Florida, hot, sticky Florida. We see that a lot. And I know that I've had several patients that they say they're embarrassed because of the odor in their liner. And I totally respect that, okay? The tips, and this is what I tell my patients. Number one, the liner has to be cleaned every day. Once every 24 hours, that liner needs to go into the shower with you to get its own little bath, okay? For the most part, people use the same soap that they use on their bodies. Okay. That's the soap I tell them to use on their liner. Why? Because if it's safe to use on their bodies, not the HIPAA okay, then it's going to be safe to use on their liner and it's not going to cause any new reactions. Okay. The second thing I tell people is hot water, not hot water to the point that you're scalding yourself, but hot enough water, okay, that will kill off any of the bad stuff inside of your liner. Okay. So usually I tell people, most of my patients use a shower chair when they're taking their shower, or they have some sort of ledge. So I say, take the liner in there with you, rinse it with the soap and the hot water, as hot as you can tolerate, again, without getting burned, right? And then you have to rinse and rinse. And those of you who watch the show know what I'm going to say next. Rinse some more, okay? That is the key to keeping the liner clean without a smell and without causing a rash on your own skin, guys, okay? Rinsing, rinsing, rinsing so that there's no soapy residue left in that liner. If there is any soapy residue that's left in there, that's what's going to cause a breakout on your skin. And also it's going to cause an odor, believe it or not, okay? Because it's stuff that shouldn't be in there, okay? Next thing, and again, this is going to contradict a little bit about what I said in the beginning about having options and not one thing works for everybody. This is my one time I break that rule, and it's with the Vital Fit products. Okay, and guys, this isn't a sponsored show right now. This is just me being the physical therapist and what I give to my patients. So in the 18 years that I've been doing this, I used to have to cobble together a skincare routine for my patients based on things that I could find at the local pharmacy or drugstores. Okay. And I'd have patients over the years that would say, oh, I use this stuff, or I use bag balm, or I used a little bit of Vaseline, and this works and that, but nothing that could really work for all of my patients. Okay. So the Vital Fit product line, and you guys can find that on my website, and there's also a discount code, is fantastic. Fantastic. Their cleanser, it works. It does not have all these harsh antibacterial, but it does kill off the bad bacteria. It kills off the stuff that needs to be killed off that causes that odor and that sweat, but it doesn't kill off the natural flora on your skin that we want to keep healthy. Okay, it was designed by a dermatologist, guys, and dermatologists are going to understand a lot better than I do about how that flora works on your skin. Okay, they also have the moisturizers, the two different types of moisturizers, which help keep your skin healthy. Remember what I said, if you're washing your skin too aggressively, if your skin's too dry and you have little cracks in your skin, that's also where infection can get in there. Okay, so these moisturizers keep it nice and supple and healthy. And I have so many of you here on the show that either you've tried the products on your own or you've won some of the products from the giveaways on the show. And all of you pretty much have said how much these products do help. Okay, so if you have a skincare routine that works for yourself, I say, okay, I behave myself and I let you go on your thing. But most of the people who come into my clinic, or many people on this show, or who send me emails and messages, they're having problems with their skin. So I do like to recommend this particular product line. And it's actually really well priced, very well priced, actually. All right, let's see. Roy says, I've noticed such a difference, especially the liquid to powder. I know, I love the liquid to powder. I use it for my own running when I do my long distance runs. It really prevents the chafing. It prevents that friction inside the socket. And it doesn't get all gummy like some of the other liquid to powders that are out there. All right, let me read through some of this. So Susan says, I was in the hospital 2 years and I had everything: viral myocarditis, 2 heart attacks, died for 4 minutes, got an abdominal compartment syndrome, MRSA, compartment syndrome in both legs, kidney failure. My goodness, Susan, which all led to my amputation, which I have the invagination, which I'm thinking of having it fixed, but scared if MRSA again and healing. So Susan, in your case, okay, you are that smaller population that the doctors might prescribe using HIPAA for a little while before, if you choose to have that revision surgery, and you are going to be someone that they would watch like a hawk. Okay. But again, that is just a special case in that regard. Okay. Well, and again, guys, you know, we're all trying to stay safe right now with the hand sanitizer, and we're trying to stay safe from COVID. And it's understandable that some people really want to make sure that they cover all their bases. But even, you know, if you look at the CDC, if you look at what Dr. Fauci was saying, and your average doctor will tell you, hands, soap, and water. And, mask up, keep the hands away from the face. Port of entry, right? Mark says he ordered some and it'll be here tomorrow. Oh, good, Mark. Mark, I want to know how it works for you. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to scroll through and making sure I get everybody. Hey, David Franklin. Glad I could help. So Roy says, I wash my stump and liner with the cleanser and would never look back and love it. It's good stuff. And it's just nice, guys, to know that this particular product, it's not harsh at all. It's strong enough to control the sweat and the odor, but it's not harsh enough to cause any rashes or anything like that. Theo, thank you. Let's see. All right, so I think I've covered all of my bases here. I've got one email that came in from Steven, and I love it when you guys send me emails and you either send me just comments on things that you've learned on the show, or if you send me questions, or just telling me your story. I really truly enjoy reading these emails, and I try my best to answer every single one of them. So this is one that came in, and it said, in the time I found you on my weekly calendar for access to the best unbiased information available to the amputee community. And let me tell you guys, to me, that is the best compliment I can receive. That is the goal of the show, is to provide you with information and options, what your options are in your recovery from limb loss, whether it's the options on prosthetic feet, on knees, on your health care. This is what I want to be able to do. And when I have sponsors that come on the show, all of them respect that, which is why I work with those companies, because they understand that this show is to provide you with education and information. Okay, so that is the best compliment you could have given me, Stephen, and I thank you. So he goes on to say, topic of interest to myself and hopefully others is how to determine reasonable expectations for an individual. This is a really great email. I am an AK. As of 2019 was my final amputation, and frankly, my leg is not all that comfortable. My liners were way too tight. I spoke to my prosthetic clinic multiple times about the liners, and I was told I was wrong. Finally, I went in and told them to order the next size liner, and I would pay for it. It came in and worked perfectly. Pain minimized, functionality increased. Why did I suffer for a year with an issue that I identified? So how was I to determine what I need? I never studied medicine. I was a business major. But to confuse it, I have a large medical team that I am mostly happy with. The surgeon, vascular team, physical therapy, primary care, and prosthetics. Who the heck is in charge here? Each discipline focuses on their specialty, so no overall well-being. Now, this email touches upon a lot of things that I hear from my own patients and from my own viewers. And I know that many of you right now might be nodding your head saying, yeah, something like that happened to me, where I told my doctor, I told my physical therapist, I told my prosthetist that XYZ was not working, and nobody wanted to listen to me. Or what I hear a lot from my own patients when they come in, who's in charge here? Who is supposed to be the one calling the shots? Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's address first, who is on your medical team, guys, okay? For someone who is going through an amputation, you're going to have your surgeon. And that surgeon can be a vascular surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, a general surgeon, okay? Different types of surgeons can perform a good amputation. After that, you have the team that the surgeon has on board, the nurse practitioner, the social worker, right? The nurses on the floor, the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, hopefully a psychologist or a psychiatrist on the team, okay? And then the prosthetist. Who's in charge? Okay, the best answer I can give to that, number one, you are. And I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but let's be realistic, okay? In today's healthcare society, and the majority of my listeners are US-based, okay, in today's healthcare society, it's a spider web, guys. It's a spider web, okay? Many of us will have several doctors, okay? Now, and again, I bring on my own personal experience of going through cancer. I had my oncologist, I had my surgeon, I had my OBGYN who was handling certain aspects. I had my primary care, right? And then I had my not my radiation oncologist, all the labs and everything I had to have done. And what made it even more was that some of them belonged to different hospital systems. So the right hand couldn't always speak to the left. Okay, so many of you are experiencing similar things. Your primary care physician might be on the complete opposite end of town as the physiatrist who handled your recovery from rehab. Okay, and maybe you guys are having your labs or x-rays or MRIs done at an independent facility and having to have those things so it's a big tangled mess. And for those of us who did not have any ties to healthcare medicine, it can be a little bit daunting and confusing. Okay, but guys, I've seen so many of my patients that they had no education whatsoever in healthcare, but they knew their own case. They knew who each one of their doctors were. They knew which one of the doctors was responsible for what, and they kept them all in line. Okay, now, the way it should work is that depending on the phase of your recovery will determine who is kind of calling the shots on your medical team. Okay, in those early days when you're going through your surgery and your amputation, your surgeon's calling the shots. Okay, and whenever I worked on the floors in the hospital and there was a fresh amputation, I would always clear things with the surgeon. Okay, what kind of a dressing? The dressing fell off. What do you need me to replace it with? When can I apply the shrinker? When is the person okay for cleared for out of bed orders? What are the restrictions? These are all questions and communications that I would have with the surgeon, and the surgeon and their nurse practitioner calling the shots with social worker, with the rehab unit, with the PT and OT team. Okay. As the patient moved along, for example, into the inpatient rehab center, you have the physiatrist. That is the doctor who is in charge of rehabilitation. And the physiatrist depends upon the PT, the OT, the recreational therapy, the social worker to bring all the information to him or her. Once a person is home, okay, and they're getting ready to be fit for their prosthesis and their wound has completely healed, at this point, the surgeon might discharge them from their service. And that kind of changes the scenario a little bit. By the time my patients come to me, an outpatient, usually the surgeon is out of the picture because they're already done with the surgical side of things. Okay. And at that point, it's a teamwork. In my opinion, it's a teamwork between the physical therapist and the prosthetist. Those are kind of the head of the team. If there's no other medical issues going on, okay, if we're just talking about using a prosthesis, learning how to use it, this is where the PT and the prosthetist take the reins. And if we see other issues that come up, it's our responsibility to call the doctor, to get in touch with a social worker and pull them back into the game if needed. Does that make sense, guys? So depending on what is going on in your life will determine who is the head of the team at that moment calling the shots. For my ladies out there, okay, ladies, once you're progressing enough with your recovery from the amputation and you're using your prosthesis, it's probably your OBGYN who's going to be the head of your team, okay? For men, it could be the primary care physician, okay? So it's learning what are your needs at that particular moment in your life and who is the person that can help call the shots for that, okay? Does that make sense, guys? All right, some more. So Charles says, the trips I took to Florida, humidity was an issue I faced. Oh yeah, we got humidity in spades over here. My skin being sensitive using shower gel, I was lucky able to use my Alps liners clean, dry during my trips. And again, guys, those of you, we've had a couple of those on the show as well, talking about the different liners. If you are someone who experiences a lot of rashes, a lot of problems with sweat and odor and things going on in the liner, in your liners, it's, you know, the skincare is number one thing you have to take care of. If your skin is not healthy, you got nowhere to go from there. But then also looking at the liners, we're starting to see a couple more on the market. You know, Charles mentioned the Alps liner. Blatchford has a Silcare Breathe liner, which I personally love to recommend because it just gets all the sweat out of that liner. So again, conversations to have with your prosthetist. All right, let me. Susie said, what's the product I recommended? Stepped away. Susie, I love recommending the Vital Fit product line. That's the product line that I recommend to anybody who's looking for a skincare solution. I have they're on my website. You can see their 4-part product line. There's a discount code. So guys, if you want to just try their travel size kit with my discount code, you can get that kit for $10, which is pretty reasonable for being able to try all the products. Susan says, I spray my socket with 70% alcohol. Is that okay? Susan, that is something that some of my patients use. And, you know, I know sometimes, especially for my folks who have that seal-in liner, they have to use a little germy gel, a little alcohol to get them in there. And that's perfectly fine. That's not coming in direct contact with your skin. It's stuff that comes in direct contact with your skin that I tend to be a little more picky about with my patients. So if you're just spraying the socket and just for a quick fix, just to kind of get it clean, and then you put your liner on, that's something a little different. And guys, I've seen that, you know, I've recommended that to some of my patients. Again, hot, sticky Florida, you're in a different situation. So for some of my patients that they are out all day long and their sockets get really hot and sweaty and they're doing all the good skincare, but there comes a point in time in the day where they have to take off their liner, then I will tell them just have 50-50 alcohol water solution in a spray bottle and just spray everything down in the liner, wipe it nice and clean so it's nice and dry, okay? Wipe your residual limb dry. Okay, and usually I just recommend just rinse it off with water and wipe it dry and then put everything back on, okay? But again, if you only use it here and there, it's not the same thing as using it all the time. Marielle asks, can I sleep with my prosthesis on? I don't get that question very often. Usually my patients cannot wait to take their prosthesis off by the time they get to bed. That being said, I have had the occasional patient who says that when they take their prosthesis off at night, that their phantom pain will explode at that moment. Mariella, I don't recommend it, mainly because your skin needs a break. I do recommend that patients wear a shrinker at night. There's some people that with the excess soft tissue on their residual limb, it can get a little uncomfortable, and having a shrinker on gives them a little bit more comfort and also helps with the volume management. But as far as having the prosthesis on, I don't recommend that. I don't. And I can't honestly ever, I don't know if I've ever heard of a situation where I've heard someone say that they should do that. I think your leg needs that break at night. Yeah. And Johnny just echoed that sentiment for me. Okay, sorry guys, going through here. Thank you, Susie. I played a little bit with the background setup. Harsh says, I do use 70% alcohol for almost last decade, no issues. Okay. And again, guys, if you have your skincare regimen and it works for you and you've been doing it for years and you have no issues, by all means, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But just more often than not, I have seen people come in when they use aggressive cleaners directly on their skin, that they do have a problem with it. So sorry, guys, I'm like trying to read through all these messages. So Mark says, I feel comfortable with a nightly shrinker. Okay. So I think I covered all. Oh, here's the other thing. Okay. So going back to this email that I read. Okay. So one part that the person asked in this email is, who's the head of the medical team? We talked a little bit about that. But the other point he brought was that he was after his prosthetist for a year asking for just a larger size liner, that he felt like his current liner was too tight and it was making it uncomfortable for him to function in his daily life. And he had to take it to the point of paying out of pocket for a liner to use it, okay, to prove his point, okay? And he mentioned how upset he was at the particular prosthetic company, okay? So here's kind of my thoughts on this, guys. We have large corporations and we have small mom and pop corporations when it comes to prosthetic care, when it comes to physical therapy, okay? And there's pros and cons to each, okay? Whenever I hear somebody having a negative experience at one of the larger corporations, usually when I kind of ask some more questions, it's not the corporation itself the person had a problem with. It was one specific clinician, okay? And the same can happen at a mom and pop organization, right? We've all had, so If you feel like there is something that is not being addressed in your care, whether it's not the right foot, not the right liner, you are still experiencing pain. You're not getting far enough in your therapy. Okay? Take it up the ladder. Okay? If it's a small mom and pop clinic, take it to the owner of the clinic. If it's a larger corporation, take it to the supervisor or go get a second opinion. You have that right as a patient. You have that right. And to me, it's a red flag when a clinician doesn't want their patient getting a second opinion or doesn't listen to their patient. There's no reason for you to be in pain while using a prosthesis. Discomfort sometimes, yeah, especially if you're new to using the prosthesis or you're trying to get adjusted to a new foot or a new system. But pain, no. And you need to advocate, unfortunately. It means having to advocate for yourself until you find someone who will listen to you and who will give you different options. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. Tom says, hi, Kosi. Happy New Year to you and your family. I've been an amputee for 16 years. When I wash my stump, I use regular soap and I use a surgical brush for a light scrub of my stump. And luckily, I've never had skin issues. Now that you've hooked me up with Vital Fit, what a difference. Thank you. Tom, I'm glad I'm able to help you with that. And again, Tom, you've been using a good regular routine. And this is something that, there was somebody else. There was another gentleman who had just received the products and he was asking me, what order do I use the products? Which products should I use? Here's the thing about skin. Skin loves routine. Skin loves routine, okay? So once you find a routine that your skin loves, stick to it, okay? So the tricky part is obviously finding what is that routine? What is it that's going to work, okay? But the people that I've seen who've had the most success with their skin, they can tell me in their sleep what routine it is that they follow with their skin. And they do the exact same thing on their skin every day, and it just keeps their skin in a nice balance. So Harsh says, just to clarify, I clean my silicone sleeve and rinse with water. Yeah. And that's basically it, Harsh. You mentioned that you use a 70% alcohol solution in your silicone liner. Again, if you're using it in the silicone liner, but then you're rinsing it out with water, then yeah, that's fine. For me, I focus more on, okay, what is going to be coming directly into contact with the skin? If what you're using on that liner gets rinsed out completely, then by all means. And again, following what your prosthetist is telling you on how to care for that liner. I think there was one question that I may have missed. And guys, I'm just going to kind of do this as my little plug. I am trying to grow these social media platforms. Those of you who are familiar with social media, with Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of fun stuff, the more you grow these platforms, the more the information gets out there. So for those of you who have not already, please consider subscribing to my Instagram. It's under Kosi Talks. Made it so easy for everybody. Everything is under Kosi Talks. My YouTube channel, Facebook, and then the Instagram. So if you guys haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I am going to be adding a lot of stuff in 2021 to my YouTube channel, as well as streaming there on Wednesday nights. So just something you might want to consider. All right, there was one question in here, and I'm trying to find it. Good heavens. Sorry, guys, there was one question I knew I was trying to get in here. Okay, Susan had posted a question earlier about having pain in her socket. She says, I have a sleeveless elevated vacuum suspension and I have an invagination, and in the one corner at the bottom, it hurts and it feels like I'm falling frontwards. The rollover is not correct, but he's not listening. He keeps telling me the invagination is causing all of my pain. I've had several sockets, and this is the first time I've had pain there. Okay. So Susan, a couple of things here. And it sweats so much inside. However, the liners bother me with this liner. What about Dressol to use on it? Okay. So a couple of different issues that I'm seeing here, Susan. And again, this is something where a prosthetist really would come in handy right now. It sounds like the invagination in your skin is starting to cause some problems, even though it didn't in the past. So Susan, I guess my question to you would be, what type of sockets and system were you using in the past where you did not have a problem? And is that an option for you to return to that type of system? As far as the sweat and everything on there, it could be if you're starting to all of a sudden experience sweat and you didn't have sweat, it makes me wonder if the liner is fitting properly. Okay. If you do not have total contact with the liner on your skin over your residual limb and you have little air pockets, you're creating an opportunity for sweat to form. Okay. So usually if my patient says, wow, all of a sudden I have a lot of sweat and I'm not usually a big sweater or nothing like that going on, it could be that their liner is not on properly. And again, if you're using a different liner than normal and you have that invagination in there, that creates a little bit more complex environment and does require a little bit more skill from the prosthetist. If you feel like you're falling frontwards, that's usually an alignment issue. That usually has something to do with the alignment. So again, checking with the prosthetist and perhaps getting a second opinion, Susan. So if it's a larger clinic that has more than one prosthetist, perhaps scheduling an appointment with a different prosthetist just so they can lay eyes on it and see if they can find something with the alignment, or maybe they have something else to offer in terms of the invagination. And again, I've had many patients who have some sort of invagination, some sort of folding over in the skin at the end of their residual limb. And there's many different ways to work around that. And I've seen prosthetists do things, magical things, in my opinion, with the liner. Sometimes they have like a special kind of putty that they'll put in the invagination. There's so many different things that they can do for this. But again, if this is not something that you had a problem with before, then I would say maybe ask a second opinion or just continue to have that conversation with the prosthetist because you shouldn't be having pain. Okay, let's see. Susan says, I do have air pockets. Okay. Invagination, Mark. So basically it means a skin that's folded over or folded in. So sometimes, especially with people who have a lot of extra flesh or a lot of extra soft tissue on the end of their residual limb, as it heals, it actually creates like a little pocket. And so the skin folds in on itself, and we call that an invagination. So basically just skin folding in on itself. And that can cause its own series of problems with the liner. Some people, they have no issues with their invagination. They pop their liner on and they go about their lives. Other people have big problems because within that invagination, the skin can be causing friction on itself, and you can have problems with skin breakdown, air pockets in the liner. So Susan, if you already know that you have air pockets, that's your villain right there. That's why you're having the increased sweating there. So again, check your donning procedures, how you put on your liner. For somebody who has an invagination, you have to be extra careful to make sure you get total contact with your liner, okay? Some people, and again, everybody's a little bit different. This is where you need your prosthetist looking at you and laying eyes on you. Some prosthetists, and I've had some patients where they open up the invagination and then put the liner on and they retrain their skin back. Sometimes that happens. Other times it's the opposite. They leave the invagination as it is and they put the liner on over it. Oh, Harsh, you are so kind. Harsh says, on this last Wednesday, toughest year of our lives, would like to celebrate you and your commitment, Kosi. Thanks for your advice and answers for all our questions, and may God continue to bless us all with happier and a healthier, safer 2021. Amen to that, Harsh. Thank you so much. Yes, like a valley. Thank you, Susan. Okay, we're good. But Susan, try a couple of these things and let me know how it works. Send me an email, guys. You guys can always send me a message either through the Facebook Messenger or through my website. There's a place where you can send me a question there, and I have an email account just for the questions from the show. So if you or anybody else who's listening would like to ask a question in private, please feel more than free to send me a message that way. All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and wrap it up. I think I'm due for another dose of Sudafed, and I'm going to go take a little bit of that right now and put myself to bed. But on this last show of 2020, I just want to say once again, very special thank you to my sponsors for Blatchford, College Park, and Vital Fit. Thank you so much for your support during this year. I look forward to the future and whatever that brings. But thank you so much for your support of this show. And thank you to my viewers. There's so many of you here. I see a lot of new faces, which is wonderful, but I see so many people who have been with me every Wednesday night from across the globe and from local here in the United States. And I cannot tell you how much it makes my heart smile to see these names that are now familiar to me. So thank you. All right, guys, Happy New Year. Have a blessed and safe and healthy new year, and wash those hands with soap. All right, guys, I will see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Please don't forget, go to my Instagram, follow me on YouTube, and we will see you next year. Bye, guys.